and think we're bluffing about coming for your heads. Why play civil if you won't listen to 50,000 dead? Now we know our mission, we form a militia, make Congress a prison. Why play civil when all these dead won't make you listen? What's more American than slaying your oppressors? What's more American than liberty or death first? Man, I thought we were founded on abolishing the tyranny of those who would starve a village all to live empirically. And I regret that I have only one life to give for my cause now that I can see the cause so clearly. I want our leaders, regardless of party, to fear me. I will pick my targets and assassinate them lyrically. I will bring a mountain to the town square, hook them to the pillory and leave them there. Hillary, I'll see you there. Hillary, I'll see you there. You can't keep giving us nothing and think we're bluffing about coming for your heads. Why play civil if you won't listen to 50,000 dead? Now we know our mission, we form a militia, make Congress a prison. Why play civil when all these dead won't make you listen? Welcome to the fantasy of rhetoric. Welcome to the last of the free speech while we can get it. And I promise you can get it. All you corporate Democrats, second wave Confederates, GOP illusionists, and neo-Nazi bureaucrats. And Stephen fucking Miller, I will see you in the aftermath. When all the laws are dust, there's just moral justice after that. And I will hunt you through the wasteland if it comes to that. So I can rub you in the dirt like a cheap human Brillo pad. I can sleep fine when our beds are burning, Stephen, but I'll turn around and run into the blaze to get my pillow back. As long as I can lay my head down, I can live with that. I can deal with a little ash. I can feel like a little of the old me burn with the bad and the rest of my past. The old world where we all lived and we can't get back. The old world where you didn't give and you'd still get back. Where you could rake in 12 billion and give none back. Those days are behind us, the virus will kill all that. Your wealth is behind us and kindness is meant for the past. Our leaders would bind us and starve us and call it a fast. A sacrament meant for their God that they garnish in cash. And they feed it the poor by the hundreds, that's all that it asks. Its hunger is legion and people in need are all it will have. So our only chance is to starve it and hope that it turns on them. You can't keep giving us nothing and think we're bluffing about coming for your hands. Can't keep giving us nothing and think we're bluffing about coming for your hands.
Turn on some music now. People still owe money. People still owe money. No.
To me as though you learned to love your prison. I guess you'd say you made it your own. Who knew that freedom's such a difficult decision? I bet you finally feel like you're home. Home. Right in the center where the haves meet. You were proud of incremental half speeds. You were getting down in the AOC dance line, hands tied, nodding to the backbeat. Your Secret Service dive in front of any representative alive, being asked for the very bare minimum. And you'll turn into that same kind of hard right villain you detested should we mention they could ever muster maximum. Cause liberal denial's such a lofty ataraxia, where morals take a back seat, not up in the cab, but in hidden panels made by federal human traffickers. If you trust the autopilot, then you're just a sleeping passenger, passively accepting that it isn't us the bastards serve, making peace with all the evil walking on this rancid earth, seeking unity with those who bound your hands at birth, glancing up at fascists on a bloody dais thinking they just need a push. Not a holy man, but I'm praying for a burning bush. Yeah, I know you'd love to look away, but love, you need to look. There are many massacres the country manufactured that will never make the books. Now here's your fucking hook.
It looks to me as though you learned to love your prison. I guess you'd say you made it your own. Who knew that freedom's such a difficult decision? I bet you finally feel like you're home.
Home on the range of excuses. Justify some fracking, water down pollution, paint a fresh coat of bipartisan charm over backroom collusion. Your consent is being manufactured by illusions, marketing executives in federal seclusion, working day and night to keep you just the side of lucid, and to beat down for calling out abuses. So fuck all these progressives who can speak on revolution once they empty all your powder out and spit on all your fuses. I prefer to judge a leader not by quality of tweets, but the six-figure book deals she chooses, donors he betrays, and donors that he'd gladly take a bullet before he refuses, slogans he reuses, buzzwords he produces, then he spews like mucus. Well, two can play at that. So here's the inner dialogue of every time I snap, and it's fine-tuned to ruthless, and saying politics are useless. Just a bunch of loose lips tweeting cute shit, power suits, taxpayer booze trips, bunker at the ready when the shoe flips, and there will be no news clips, there will just be
People still owe money. People still owe money. No.
It looks to me as though you learned to love your prison. I guess you'd say you made it your own. Who knew that freedom's such a difficult decision? I bet you finally feel like you're home.
People still owe money. People still owe money.
Who are these people?
Who are these people? Oh my God, we're back. Hi, everybody. It's Tuesday night. It's Indie. It's IndieNewsNow live. Something's going on with the vertical version. Let's fix that. Okay, we'll fix the ticker now. That'll be working. IndieNewsNow live. I actually am recording this vertically, so I'm looking at what the scene looked like, and it was off. But hi, everybody. We're live. We're here. This is real. This is not Memorex. This is not on tape. I'm actually here having a conversation with you. Excited to be here tonight. There is a ton of news since I was here last Tuesday. Wow. So literally, OMG. I hope you're good, Earl. I hope everything is good. Naybone says you don't do upscrolled. I was playing the song Love Your Prison, and that was a little bit of a head nod to what's been going on with TikTok and upscrolled. We're going to talk about that later, actually, tonight. That's part of what I have on the rundown. And as usual, we've got fuck Israel, fuck ICE, and a lightning round on top of talking about all the censorship that's happening across the platforms. No live nudes, Fred. Thank you. Appreciate you for saying so. Yes, that is correct. Live, no nudes. That's correct. Topless only here. So, Talking Wombat, good to see you. How are you? Yes, Upscrolled is good. TikTok, never, and others, Facebook, whatever. Yes. Well, we'll see how good it is. We're going to have a conversation about all of it. Yes, go start sick of Twitter. Let's get to all this in a little bit. Yes, was for this being live and not talking to myself. Yes, you're welcome, Earl, because the other night it was like, is this live? No, it was a recording, but that was the interview with Alan Macleod. Again, we're going to talk about that later, but man, was that amazing. What an opportunity to have a conversation with him. So again, this is Indie News Now live on Indie News Network. So support independent media. I saw Angel Rivera is in the chat. Angel's been holding it down and doing 3 shows a week lately on the network. Not even just 2, but a double dip of Angel in the afternoon on Fridays and on Mondays. And then he's doing pro wrestling talk on the weekends with Miss Witchy Perfect and Alex Knight. I also, before we get started, want to ask you to support independent media because we do need it more than ever. We're up to 10% already of our $3,000 goal for the year to meet all of our network funding. That covers the Substacks. Well, that's really more profit, but Restream and Canva are the big bills. But we've got other ones, Zoom and other things that we have throughout the year. A bunch of domains as well. That, inn.com and or inn.store, tons of different. I think we got 40 domains, something like that. So that costs a bunch. But and then of course IndieNewsNow.com, the hosting for that, and all the apps and things that support that. So please, the people that do support it are on that board. That's our wall of fame. We love all those people. A lot of them are here in chat right now. The best way to do that is Cash App, $ Indie News Network on your phone. All right, at code-v.com/Indie News Network, and that'll pop something up on the screen. You can put a message up. At paypal.me/Indie News Network, if you do it as friends and family, there's no fees to us. Then we've got patreon.com/Indie News Network for a monthly recurring thing. Website at IndieNewsNow.com. I talked about it a second ago. You can actually donate and tip our network over there through the Keep the News Free tab. And then we're live over on Substack. Hi to everybody over on Substack. If you're watching already, thank you. Like the Talking Wombat. That's at IndieMediaToday.com. Again, we're also a member of Indie News Network. That's INN. So INNNewsletter.com is a separate newsletter that publishes a ton of content. Go subscribe to both of them. Okay. All right. So we're back to here. I have got, wow. This looks like boats smashing into other boats. For those who don't know, I do a Sunday night show with Reef Breland here on INN. On the Ocho, we have a whole different channel on most of our platforms or at INNNewsletter.com, and we react to goofy, silly stuff. But Reef sets up a bunch of tabs of TikToks and Reddit videos and Twitter videos, and we just laugh and get goofy. But what I see at the top of his browser is 40 tabs or 50 tabs or 60 tabs, and all I see are these little tabs like, oh my God, we have to get through all that. Right? Vicky, that's okay. Oh, your presence is all we need, and I appreciate that too. Share the show if you can, if you're on socials. Even if not, just hang out in chat and enjoy the content and tell other people about it, because I know you do. Earl, I'm so poor I rely on warm clothes and the weakness of my neighbors in the apartment building. Well, again, I appreciate everybody just coming and hanging out and paying attention to what we have to talk about, because so few are. Money, please. That's the soundbite that Reef used to play before, and he still does on boats, but I don't have that on here. I have some other stuff. I have like this one. Where is it? Who are these people? Who are these people? And Jimmy Dore even doing it.
Who are these people?
That's right. So we have some sound bites to play throughout the night. Maybe. I don't know. We'll see how into it I get. But yeah, we're going to talk about ICE. We're going to start with that one. Then we're going to talk about censorship. And that leads into what's going on with Israel. So, and then we'll get into lightning round. We'll do the GoFundMe's and we'll head out for the week. Next week, there will not be an Indie News Now live. I got to travel for work. So one of the rare Tuesday nights we're going to miss. I'll try to put together some kind of a clip show. So it'll put, maybe it's even some of the ICE stuff that we've done, and start at the beginning. And then every once a month, we'll do an ICE show on top of all that. because this did not start like this month or recently. This started close to a year ago, and we're going to get there. So let's actually do that. Well, again, that's our wall of fame. Thank you to everyone that's on there. All right. So I thought that this was an appropriate cartoon to start with. Democracy dies in ice. All right. Because, of course, they said that's what the agent said. Stupid bitches should have complied. It's been a week, huh? Alex Parenti murdered in cold blood by multiple ICE agents, and again, justice and the Statue of Liberty are now lying in blood. So just to remind people that we're saying that he had a weapon, yes, but it was holstered and never was picked out. It never was taken out. It was never brandished at any point. He was holding a phone. He didn't go for a gun. He was reporting. He was observing. That's what he was protecting, the woman that had actually just been pushed down. And you see this woman next to him with a whistle and with eye protection, because sometimes they'll spray with pepper spray, which they did to him, by the way. I'm not going to show the actual murder. I mean, it's a snuff film. There's plenty of people that have shown it. There's plenty of places to go see it. It's horrific. And all right, here's just another angle, just so that we're clear. The victim's position when the first shot was fired, he was on his knees with his shirt pulled up over his arms, surrounded by 7 ICE agents. So again, ICE agents murdered an American citizen, a male RN by the name of Alex Parenti, 37 years old, in Minnesota this past week. And it was awful. And it happened in front of everybody. Multiple witnesses were filming it. They don't care. And they're being protected. The people who did the murder are actually being protected. All right. So under McDeer, here's the clear slow-mo of disarming him before any shots were fired. There's no doubt that here's the guy's hand holding the gun that Alex Parenti allegedly had. And then he discharges this gun with one shot, everybody else gun, and then boom, boom, boom. He's shot 5 times, and then another 5 times in the back. 10 shots killed this guy. All right? Terrible. It's a phone. All right? Horrific. And this is what you have with these escalations and these ICE agents that were basically given immunity. Yeah, Alex Parenti, that's his name. I'm going to say his name. Absolutely. In America, if you film law enforcement, they execute you on the spot in broad daylight. I thought that was supposed to be North Korean propaganda. That's our brother Robert Durden, another INN co-founder. Go follow him on Upscroll now, but also on Twitter at Real Rob Durden. All right. Here we go. But there was a lot more that happened. And that's the thing. Yes, that man was murdered. It was horrible. And there's a ton of coverage around that. I want to step back for a minute and maybe give it a little bit more time before I actually cover that in detail, because a lot more happened this week that I think got kind of lost because everybody was talking about Alex. Well, justifiably so. But man, there was some other stuff going on too. So 5 days ago, all right, the Columbia Heights Public School District said 2 children were taken Tuesday, including a 17-year-old boy on his way to school, removed from his car and taken away. Then in the afternoon, this one really got me. 5-year-old Liam Ramos taken with his father while in their driveway after just arriving home from his preschool classroom. School officials say the child was used as bait to knock on the door and asked to be let in, letting officers see if anyone else was home. This is IDF type of tactics. This is underhanded, disgusting, unlawful tactics being used to apprehend people and then lock them up, put them in a private detention facility, and then eventually deport them after you've squeezed enough out of the system per their body count. I mean, it's disgraceful. All right. 2 weeks ago, a 10-year-old student in the 4th grade was taken by ICE agents on her way to elementary school with her mother. During the arrest, the child called her father on the phone to tell her ICE agents would bring her to school. The father then came to the school to find out that both his daughter and wife had been taken. And ICE did not target a child. The child was abandoned. No, that is not what happened. Right? Who was released into the U.S. by the... Like, they just made this whole thing up. And again, they weren't targeting one child. They were targeting 4 children. These bastards. All right, and here's the thing. 5-year-old and father detained in Columbia Heights, shaking the community. Columbia Heights is where they went into the high school and they tackled the guys on the day that they murdered Renee Good as well. They've been targeting this community and this school for a while. Terrorizing this community. Again, in the United States, you can film a police officer and be pepper sprayed while you're laying down supine, or prone, whatever you call it. But new photos reveal federal agents holding a protester to the ground as they spray chemical irritant directly into his face. This isn't like North Korea, quote unquote. This isn't some foreign third world dictatorship. This is Minnesota, allegedly. This is somewhere in the United States. All right, then you have, all the people unskilled labor wanted funny. Okay. Next, here's the 5-year-old. Zach Lambert says, when they teach us about this shameful time in America's history, this picture will be front and center. All right. This is Liam Ramos. He's a 5-year-old boy in Minnesota who was arrested by ICE and then used as bait to lure his family members into custody, even though they're legal asylum seekers. Liam and his family members have been shipped to an ICE detention center 1,200 miles away from their home. Why? His preschool teacher, Ella Sullivan, said he's a bright young student. He's so kind and loving, and his classmates miss him, and all I want is for him to be safe and back here. It's like just trying to terrorize and traumatize an entire generation of children. What do you think is going to happen when that kid grows up? Is he going to love America? Like, are you creating a generation of people that are going to then want to come back and hurt this country? Like, do they not see what they're doing long term? They're begging for it. But worse than that, I saw this from a congressman, reminder that as of the latest reports, he's still in prison in Texas for 5 days. No criminal record for the parents. He's not in prison. No, he's in a private detention facility where they're stuffed and underfeeding everybody and losing people. They've lost 300,000 unaccompanied minors trafficked all over America. Right. We need to be finding these children. Yeah, well, we need to let them the fuck out and let them go home with their parents. What are you doing? Fuck these right-wing chud douchebags that are like mad about... What you should be mad at is that kid is not in his home, in his nursery school, going to pre-K and having fun, enjoying life every day. I don't give a fuck. That kid did nothing. And now he's sitting with the worst of the worst. Well, allegedly. But in a massive empty space with a tinfoil sleeping bag and thin clothes to sleep on a freezing cold floor in Texas with 30 other kids for a room that was built for 5 to occupy, if you listen to Jesse Jett. Man, I'm fired up. So on top of all of that, let's not forget that this all started with ICE abducting this guy, Mahmoud Khalil, from his home because he tried to negotiate between the Hinds Hall occupants that took over that hall at Columbia University and tried to get them out and work alongside the NYPD. He was on their side. And they still did this to him because they could. So he vows to oppose Trump's efforts to deport him to Algeria over pro-Palestine speech. He's a Syrian who's lived in the UK and here, but they want to send him to fucking Algeria. So this comes from Indie Media Award honoree Mondo Weiss. Okay. Mahmoud and his legal team vowed to fight the Trump administration plans to deport him to Algeria, calling the move extreme punishment for his pro-Palestinian speech. And this is written by one of the co-founders himself of Mondo Weiss, Michael Aria. All right, there's Mahmoud speaking at New York City back in June. A Trump admitted official has declared that Palestine activist Mahmoud Khalil will be deported to Algeria. I wouldn't even necessarily consider him to be a Palestine activist. He has spoken on their behalf. All right, but that's, again, the frame. I'm not crazy about the framing to begin with. But they're saying, Tricia McLaughlin, it looks like they'll go to Algeria. That's what the thought is right now. Maybe they'll send him to South Sudan instead. All right, that's what she told News Nation, the corporate network nobody ever asked for. Created by Nexstar Media that also is the home of The Hill Rising. Mahmoud Khalil, a former Columbia University student and lead negotiator during the school's Gaza protests. Negotiator with whom? Yeah, he was the go-between with the NYPD. They respected him. They spoke to him. Then they arrested him in 2025 and detained him at a Louisiana facility for 3 months on orders from the State Department. He missed the birth of his first child, these motherfuckers. He missed his first Father's Day. And they do this just because they can, just because they want to be assholes. Khalil was never charged with a crime. But Marco Rubio claimed that his continued presence in the U.S. posed adverse foreign policy consequences under the Immigration and Nationality Act. What a joke. What was he doing other than using his voice? Was he murdering people around the country? No. Was he stabbing representatives? No. He was speaking to a crowd, maybe, if that, or on a podcast. Are they going to do that to Joe Rogan next? No, of course not, because he plays ball with the CIA. In June of 2025, a federal judge ordered Khalil to be released on bail. And they've been trying to reverse that bullshit ever since. I mean, he should never have been locked up in the first place. Why is he on bail? There's at least something to the underlying claim that there is an effort to use the immigration charge here to punish Mr. Khalil. Yes, that's what the judge said during the hearing. And of course, that would be unconstitutional. But we know that all these guys are wiping their ass with the Constitution right now. They don't give a shit about the Constitution. They just want to inflict punishment and quote unquote win. But last week, the Third Circuit Court of Appeals overturned the Fabiar's ruling, which is nuts, which reopened the question of his fate and prompted McLaughlin's comments to News Nation. Again, this has been a target of the administration. They want to make examples of specific people. They want to have them punished, have them locked up for months on end, and then deport them and have them be miserable and have to start from scratch and start from zero wherever they end up in a place that usually the UN or the United States is advising its own residents not to travel to because it's a dangerous area, like South Sudan, or where they don't speak the language or where they don't know a soul, like in Algeria where they speak French, I believe. All right. The new decision won't go into effect right away, and Khalil can't be redetained unless the order takes formal effect, which they may have it do, which wouldn't happen while he still has the opportunity to seek review. When have they been listening to any of what the judges have said, by the way, at ICE? Really? Some people, Bavino showed up for certain hearings, but then they just did whatever the hell they want. And then they asked for forgiveness rather than permission. Quote, Mahmoud cannot be legally detained or deported now because his appeals process has not concluded, explained his legal team. But it's no surprise to hear that the government reiterate what it always has been its ultimate goal, to impose the extreme punishment of deportation on him for his pro-Palestinian speech. Yes, the government statements only reinforce its disdain for the First Amendment rights of people engaged in lawful protest and make clear why federal court intervention is so vitally important. They're the only ones that can basically step in and stop this, because the Democrats certainly are not going to. The reason why is because they've got Israeli donors and IDF and AIPAC donors that are telling them to sit down and shut up about this. All right? Mahmoud cannot be legally detained. There's the Instagram post. Last week, federal judge unsealed documents confirming that activists like Mahmoud were arrested because of their pro-Palestine speech. I believe I had that, or I was about to have that. The documents also revealed that the Trump admin had relied on its shadowy doxing site, Canary Mission, which we knew, to identify its students to target. And there's the file from Canary Mission. Unreal, but not unreal at all. The revelation confirms the validity of the July 2025 testimony from ICE senior official Peter Hatch, who told a Boston court that the DHS used information from Canary Mission and other websites to open files on about 100 foreign students and scholars. It was very targeted, and Canary Mission, again, Israel-friendly. Many of the names, or even most of the names, came from that website, but we were getting names and leads from many different websites. We received information on the same protesters from multiple sources, but Canary Mission was the most inclusive. The list came from all different directions. Many of us have long been trying to raise alarm bells about the dangers of privately funded hate groups such as Canary Mission, which is what Barnard and Columbia University professor told Mother Jones. As testimony at the trial and the trove of newly released documents clearly demonstrate, Canary Mission's blacklist has serious material consequences. They have played a central role in providing names of Palestinian and pro-Palestinian students to the federal government, calling for their deportation. And then guess what happens? That's what happens. When asked about Trump's plans to deport Khalil, Zohran Mamdani condemned the move, but of course, he's powerless to stop it. He's a New Yorker, Mamdani told. Of course, he's going to play the game. I'll make clear to everyone that he deserves to stay in the city. That's great. Again, he has nothing to do with this. That's a waste of airtime, honestly. I don't even want to hear what he has to say. Waste of time. Useless. All right. The door may have been open for potential redetainment down the line, but it has not closed our commitment to Palestine and to justice and accountability. He won't shut up, and I don't blame him. That's what they want, is to silence him and to stop him from speaking out. I will continue to fight through every legal avenue and with every ounce of determination until my rights and the rights of others like me are fully protected. The question is, where do you go? Algeria is not going to be safe for him. All right? He can't go really to any Five Eyes Israel-friendly country because Israel's going to have him targeted there too. And that includes Russia. I don't know what the answer is. I don't know where you go at this point. Right? So support Mondo Weiss. That's a good article by Michael Aria. Again, one of the co-founders of Mondo Weiss, Indie Media Award honoree 2022 for one of the top independent outlets there is. All right. Exclusively user-funded, focused on Palestine, Israel, and the United States. Again, they put Palestine first. Also, something that we need to be aware of and alarmed about, all right, is that Homeland Security is turning warehouses into mass detention camps, and it must be stopped. This is an op-ed from another Indie Media Award honoree that I haven't pulled from in a while, which is Common Dreams. They've been really shit-libby But this happened to be a pretty good article. So shout out to Common Dreams. Go give them a follow. I know they're desperate for money. They're always begging for donations. I get so many emails that are like, we're about to shut down if we don't get funding. And somehow they manage to stay afloat every month. And I like some of the people over there, Julie Conley, Brett Wilkins. They're again, first class, first ballot Hall of Famers. But this is about a 10-minute read total, according to this, if you read it at one-time speed without commenting. All right, but with unprecedented funding and minimal oversight, Homeland Security is rapidly building a national detention infrastructure that will treat human beings as freight and confine civilians at an industrial scale. Frightening shit. And by the way, shout out to Dissented Bloom, who's in chat right now. She wrote about stuff like this over the summer when they started with Alligator Alcatraz or Alligator Auschwitz, which had to be shut down. And by the way, 1,200 people have disappeared and never been found. They've never accounted for them. Their families are still freaking out. Department of Homeland Security's warehouse detention system is rapidly unfolding across the United States, advancing in open contempt of oversight, outpacing public scrutiny, and operating with the same disregard for the Constitution, the rule of law, and human life that defines the Trump administration's exercise of power. Again, that is a little partisan, I will be the first to say, but none of it is inaccurate. In November 2025, NBC News reported that DHS was actively scouting enormous industrial warehouses across the country, particularly in rural areas, scream where they can't hear you, near major airports and transportation hubs, so they could fly people in and out, traffic people in and out, allegedly, but not really allegedly, in an effort to expand the administration's capacity to execute its mass deportation agenda. A system that current Secretary Kristi Noem recently aptly described as one of the most consequential periods of action and reform in American history. Consequential, sure, but negative consequences for most people. After the big, beautiful bill allocated an additional $45 billion specifically to ICE for building new immigration detention centers through 2029. This is going to outlast when this fucker's gone, hopefully. A budget 62% larger than the entire federal prison system. Again, a budget 62% larger than the entire federal prison system for a year. Homeland Security gained unprecedented financial capacity to expand its system of terror on a massive scale. Some of the warehouses under imminent consideration exceed 800,000 square feet and could hold far more people than existing detention centers, compressing thousands of human beings into spaces designed for inventory, not habitation. It was zoned for commercial industrial warehouse use, not for human habitation. There aren't adequate bathrooms and adequate facilities, everything, just kitchens and closets and windows. Further reporting in December showed that with this massive budget increase, Homeland Security isn't merely expanding capacity at the margins, but it's redesigning the model itself. Well, why not, when you've been given the budget that allows you to do so? All those detained by Homeland Security and ICE agents, including predominantly people without criminal records, both documented and undocumented, immigrants, migrants, and U.S. citizens, where they have separate processing areas and facilities, will presumably be swiftly processed at local sites before being funneled into a small number of mega facilities, each holding between 5,000 and 10,000 people. Those are not mega facilities. Those are mega prisons, because they don't say they are there indefinitely. They don't get to see counsel in any kind of time. They don't get any kind of due process. They don't get any kind of rights whatsoever, it seems, when they're there. And then half the time they're just released without charges after months. Wow. The plans outlining the duration of the confinement, and the conditions under which people will be held in the warehouses while awaiting deportation remain unknown. Yeah, sure they do. Except that we know exactly how they've treated them in all the other facilities that have been created, to the point where there's been absolute blanket silence about what happens inside there. The one time we got footage inside, that guy was disappeared. One can only assume that the system will operate as Trump's ICE director Todd Lyons described at the 2025 Border Security Expo in Phoenix. Like Amazon Prime, but with human beings. Concern for fundamental standards of care and due process or pathways to legal immigration is replaced with the directive to get better at treating this like a business. The confinement, neglect, abuse, and exploitation that this process will inevitably worsen will be excused by the administration as efficient and run by AI. Since the news first broke, local reporting has confirmed the rapid construction and conversion of mass confinement centers across the country. Again, each one to hold between 5,000 and 10,000 people, in addition to what they have now. Warehouse sites in Maryland, Texas, Florida, New York's Hudson Valley were reported to be under active consideration just in the past 2 weeks. But that's just a small part of it. Many communities slated to host these facilities have only learned of the plans through national reporting. In early January, the Washington Post found that when it contacted local governments in all 23 cities on ICE's internal list, many officials had never been informed by federal authorities and could not comment. Multiple members of Congress have also stated publicly that they were not formally notified about the plans to establish these facilities in their districts. It would have meant jobs. They might have even been on board. They don't even get to know. Nope. It pops up and they're already there and there's nothing you can do about it. They don't want to tell anybody. Because then they get protests. Then they get people asking questions. Then they get the state regulators and the town for permits. Like, are they getting local permits to build these facilities? Are they having inspections to make sure that the toilets actually work? That the showers actually work? No, we know that they haven't been working. State and local officials near proposed sites are now scrambling to hold emergency meetings, trying desperately to prevent being cut out of decisions with profound moral and ethical consequences that will reshape their communities right in their backyards. Still, there's widespread fear that the federal government will simply ignore local zoning and land use laws. That's what I'm worried about, too. They know that these are already facilities that are built for industrial warehouse use and not for humans to live in. Under the Supremacy Clause, federal agencies are largely immune from local zoning rules unless Congress explicitly requires compliance. How convenient. Private contractors or lessees are not automatically covered, but in practice, immigration detention facilities and their operators face almost no local oversight. Again, how convenient. States like California have passed laws to empower health inspections and enforce standards against operators like Geo Group. Yet counties rarely act because they're financially strapped, and courts often side with federal preemption because they're all bootlickers and they're all on the same side and they all hate us. If this continues, Homeland Security could override community land use standards entirely, imposing massive detention infrastructure on rural, resource-strained neighborhoods without consent, accountability, or regard for local residents. So between the data centers and these facilities where they're going to lock everybody up, well, you're not going to need much water when they're not going to give you any water because they're locking you up in this massive warehouse. But the data center, it's going to get nice air conditioning and plenty of water. Notably, the Trump administration has already made clear its intention to restrict congressional oversight of existing detention facilities leaving little reason to believe that these mega warehouse models will be any more transparent or accountable. Isn't that nice? So just not even bother trying to fight it. On January 8th, Homeland Security issued a directive requiring members of Congress to provide prior notice before inspecting immigration facilities. So no more surprise inspections. Let us clean up all the messes and hide all the real bad shit before you get here. Attempting to circumvent a court order that blocks such restrictions. They've already been told they can't. They don't give a fuck. Although federal law allows for unannounced visits, the no memo instructs staff that visits are not considered actionable until acknowledged with the Office of Congressional Relations, which coordinates with ICE and confirms details as soon as practicable. Again, making shit up. But they'll get rid of her and they'll just replace her with some other clown who may enforce this, may release it, loosen it a little bit, but they don't want to let Congress in. They don't want anybody to see what they're building. Same thing when it comes to, the East Wing of the White House, where they pulled that down and they're building the quote-unquote ballroom. Who the fuck knows what's going on there? The only supposed oversight of this expansion is being handled by figures deeply embedded in the detention industry, such as David Venturella, who's been seen in recent weeks touring ICE facilities slated for the unloading and loading of goods. That means humans. Venturella quietly entered the Trump administration early last year to avoid Senate confirmation when Homeland Security hired him as a full-time advisor and granted him an ethics waiver. All right, now, keep that in mind when I remind you that they just allegedly demoted or fired or whatever Greg Bovino, all right, and sent him back to California. What is stopping Homeland Security from, once he retires, hiring him as a full-time advisor at 10 times his salary and granting him the same type of an ethics waiver? Nothing. That's what's probably going to happen. Prior to this role, this asshole spent more than a decade at Geo Group, one of the most monstrous companies in the world, again, and one of the nation's largest private prison corporations, where public filings show that this guy was paid over $6 million to oversee immigrant detention operations. His career has moved seamlessly between ICE leadership and private security firms, not a good dude, including Geo Group and L3 Communications and USIS, companies whose profits depend on surveillance, enforcement, and confinement. He's gotten rich off it. He now oversees the ICE division responsible for detention contracts and infrastructure, which is the same system he previously expanded for private prison shareholders. It's literally a revolving door. They just literally sent him from industry into the administration to accomplish their goals, which is to set up mass detention facilities for their profit. Private contractors such as Geo Group continue to operate facilities housing the vast majority of ICE detainees, positioning themselves to make substantial profit, like I just said, as the administration moves to double detention capacity to 100,000 beds with tens of billions in federal spending. Geo Group and Core Civic, those are the two biggest companies that jail people for profit, have already reported soaring revenues under Trump's second term, with executives describing the expansion as pivotal and an unprecedented growth opportunity. Now, what they're also not saying is that not just revenues, but profits, all right? Because they're squeezing these detainees. They're feeding them substandard food. They're giving them slop to eat. They're giving them paper-thin blankets and not even paying to adequately heat the facilities, which would, guess what, cost more money. Not for my profits. Fuck you guys. I don't have to worry about that. I'm sleeping in a nice warm bed in my beautiful house. That's what these assholes are thinking. In this system, human confinement has been transformed into an investment strategy. That's right. Regardless of motive? No, not regardless of motive. That is their motive. Americans must confront that this hub-and-spoke detention network is a moral calamity, echoing some of the most inhumane periods in American and world history. Yeah, I would say so. These warehouses lack climate control, ventilation, running water, sanitation, and medical facilities. The public cannot assume that they'll be retrofitted to meet even basic standards. Alligator Alcatraz wasn't. That's why the state of Florida had it shut down. Under the pressures imposed by political will and the promise of enormous financial gain for both contractors and the administration, restrained only by Trump's own notion of morality, oh my God, overcrowding, medical neglect, sanitation failures, family separations, and death are not incidental or isolated. They're predictable, systemic outcomes of this design. Frequent transfers between facilities further destabilize those detained, shattering whatever order, remember they like law and order, remains in custody, tearing families apart, severing access to legal support, and concentrating the suffering of detention out of public view, which is also, again, something Dissent and Bloom wrote about and part of their plan, part of Project 2025, if they mention this. 2025 was already ICE's deadliest year in more than 2 decades. Why has ICE been around for 2 decades to begin with at least 32 people dying in custody? They're supposed to be caring for these people, not murdering them. In December of 2025, Amnesty International described ICE facilities as a deliberate system built to punish, dehumanize, and hide the suffering of people in detention. Wow, that sounds a lot like the Israeli torture camps that they put all the Palestinians in, doesn't it? Recent site visits documented by Congressman Ro Khanman. How did they let him in and why, when they don't let anybody in? Further revealed the inhumane and degrading conditions that detainees face today. That's because they wanted him to see it, including denial of medical care and meals containing rocks and debris. Meals containing rocks and debris. They're making these people eat literal dirt. In a moment of utter chaos, multiple wars looming or underway, international law ignored and explicitly disregarded, pedos protected, allegedly, but not, cities under conditions of terror, with agents told they have federal immunity to occupy streets. The infrastructure for this mass detainment system is expanding largely out of public view. Again, that's the point. Facilities may be secured before communities can even mobilize. Contracts locked in before lawmakers intervene, and once operational, and our communities will be left to reckon with the human suffering they guarantee. Now, I will say that lawmakers can, guess what? Undo whatever has been done and order it undone. Remember that courts ordered Starbucks to literally reopen facilities in the Buffalo area after they closed it, trying to punish workers that had unionized. They can make the administration shut these facilities down. I completely disagree with the fact that things can get locked in before lawmakers intervene. They can cancel them, or they can pay them out to not actually execute them. They just make the money up anyway. These facilities are instruments of state-sanctioned inhumanity, engineered to evade legal standards and public accountability. Yes, it's why they were built that way. The depravity lies not only in the degrading conditions they produce, but in the calculus that animates them. Speed is treated as a virtue, suffering is deemed acceptable and perhaps even a goal, and profit is treated as proof of success. The administration isn't asking the public to accept this system. It's demanding acquiescence and enforcing it through threat and force. And if not, we'll take you into a facility, rough you up, and leave you out in the cold. ICE's expansion has already reshaped the country's physical and moral landscape without consent, transparency, or regard for human life. Sounds like rape. The choice is no longer abstract. Communities must decide whether to act against this system of cruelty or let silence stand as consent. All right. Again, this is from Indie Media Award honoree Common Dreams, a woman named Julia Norman, an independent writer and researcher from LA. I think this is the first piece that she's ever written in Common Dreams. It was a good one. It's a little long, but oh man, it's upsetting as hell. Look at these facilities. Again, all the fencing. There's no privacy. It's all transparent. The lights stay on 24/7. Again, read Descent in Bloom's articles about these facilities from her Substack, descentinbloom.substack.com. All right. God damn, man. So upsetting. But so fuck ICE for that. I'm not done. I got more. This one I had to bring. Super upsetting. This is a few minutes of this video. It is a little horrific. Yesterday, this is Nico Lemieux, I've never heard of, but I saw this come across my feed. Yesterday, as I was walking through Minneapolis with a friend, I saw this Lexus parked terribly and commented to him, "Get a load of this asshole's terrible parking." By complete serendipity, as if the universe itself was saying, "Be kinder with your spoken thoughts." Right at that moment, I heard a voice say, "Hey, that's my car. ICE grabbed me. I'm so sorry." Come from the passenger of a Jeep slowly passing by. What? The Jeep driver said she was the sister of the Lexus's owner and that the two of them had just come back from picking her up from federal detention. What? I went to go talk to the Lexus driver, but first I read the note on the windshield. This woman was taken by ICE. Please don't hit or tow. Neighbors put that there, and then they put a tarp over the window that ICE broke open so snow wouldn't get in. This is, again, our neighbors are the best of us. It's only our neighbors that are going to take care of us in the end. The Lexus driver, a short, brown-haired white woman, told me that she lived in the area and was driving through looking for parking when armed ICE agents speedily blocked off the street in front of her and swarmed the white pickup truck directly in front of her, grabbing its driver. She said people came from throughout the neighborhood with whistles to record them grabbing that driver, and then she was trying to leave, but ICE agents then swarmed her car as well and proceeded to open her window and door and remove her from her car, slamming her face down on the street. This is an American citizen. She was wasn't even just minding her own business. She said a federal agent entered her vehicle and parked it like this before taking her away. I don't know the story of the pickup driver. I'll be honest, I didn't even really believe what I was hearing at first until she showed me the video that a neighbor filmed confirming the whole story. I asked her to airdrop it to me so I could make this post. This woman was just driving and minding her business one moment, and the next she was snatched. And she told me that they said she was obstructing a fucking investigation. After 24 hours in federal custody, remember, due process and right to a speedy whatever, right? 24 hours in federal custody. They released her with only the white shirt she was wearing when I met her into the -8°F cold where her sister was waiting, and they didn't even give her back her car keys. She came to make sure her vehicle was still there. There's a lot of people on this platform making all sorts of excuses for the federal government's despicable behavior in Minneapolis. But what it comes down to is this: they are out of control. This woman's story that this person saw firsthand is emblematic of the institutional rot at the core of Homeland Security, Border Patrol, and ICE. The agents involved in both shootings this month were 8- and 10-year veterans, not untrained amateurs. One of them was literally a fucking weapons instructor. There have been 3 homicides in Minneapolis thus far in 2026, 2/3 of which have been U.S. citizens murdered by the federal government. My city is being subjected to a full-fledged occupation by lawless, unprofessional, un-American thugs. Again, sounds a lot like Gaza. I'm surprised they're not blowing up houses yet. They've gone far beyond their stated mission of removing violent criminals and illegal aliens, quote unquote, even though that's bullshit in itself. They have all of us looking at every SUV, every vehicle without estate plates, every vehicle with more than 2 men in it with caution, scrutiny, and concern. Many of my friends have bought guns or have gone to get their concealed carry permits to stay safe from their own government because, again, like the cops always say, better to be judged by 12 than carried out by 6, right? Minneapolis will survive this and will come out stronger for it because we learned in 2020 that there's no one coming to save us. It's up to us to show up for our friends and neighbors. But people need to know that if the federal government are doing this to us, you're not safe. As Bill Goldberg says, you're next. Yes, they blocked her in, Seven Sword Mary. That's absolutely right over on Rumble. Thank you. It's, again, just heartbreaking. Pedophile, murder, rapist morality. That's right. All right, so here's her car with the window and the sign. But here's the actual video.
Oh my God, oh my God.
Of them take her. Face down on the pavement. Why? There's the guy in the pickup truck. So they yanked that guy out. Why? What'd he do? He's just trying to drive to... Jesus.
What the hell is that?
I see them pushing that person with the baseball hat up against the van. Now you got an ICE agent in the truck. He basically just stole this guy's truck. They pulled the Lexus over to the side. Now she's down on the ground with her face down on the pavement. See that? And they're shooting pepper spray bullets. That's what that pop, pop, pop is. They've all got pepper spray guns, like paintball guns. You see, there was a discharge. Pop. Out of control is right. There they picked her up. She's in a white t-shirt. That's her in the white t-shirt. And they take her to jail. Why? 24 hours in a facility. And you know she wasn't treated well. And that's how they left her car. Not even like parked on the side of the road. They didn't put the window up. They could have. They just kidnapped her, swept her up, and left her shit there in the middle of the street. You hear all the whistles. That's the neighbors warning everybody else that this is going on and to come out and witness it. Look at this. They're then attacking anybody that goes near the car. Look at this one who's getting chased off. He tried to help with the car. These fucking pieces of shit. Right in front of a fire hydrant. Again, so that they'll get towed. Luckily, they weren't. See, they're still shooting. Like, why are they firing pepper spray bullets at people for yelling? Bap, bap, I see all the firing. Imagine this on your street, in your neighborhood. Oh yeah, by the way, it's also like 10 below zero outside. Yep, that's right, Alex. That's right. All this is happening in below zero temperatures. That's exactly what I just said. Thank you. We're on the same page there. All right. A brother, another INN member, Chris Legion. Trump White House using Israeli tactics to justify ICE murdering people. Claim the victims that they murder are violent terrorists. Using partisan politics to divide its cult members into justifying ICE murdering citizens and telling their cultists that murders that they're seeing aren't real. Check, check, and check. When you're right, Chris. And finally, I just wanted to bring this up. This is an article that Jen Budd. Now, Jen Budd is, I've talked about her before, brought a couple of her articles, a Customs and Border Patrol whistleblower who was actually a member of Border Patrol like 25 years ago, and she was raped while she was in the Border Patrol. Then she turned and became a whistleblower and exposed everything that she was a part of because she realized just how monstrous it was. Now, she wrote this back in March, right after Mahmoud Khalil was taken, and there was an especially prescient section, and I'll put this in the description, but I want to start right here. Right here. She said, in every way, I've said it in every way that I know is possible. And she has been trying to sound the alarm for a long time, for years. She's written books about it. She's gone on TV. She's done speaking tours. She's really tried to get people to pay attention to just how much control they've taken over, just how they've been pushing this narrative, and how this is a long-term plan to execute this. Gangs of cops are scouring the nation looking for people of color without papers. All cops from every agency, every level of government are hunting people of color in schools, in churches, in farms, in businesses, and in homes. They're banging on doors, demanding entry without warrants, arresting mostly non-criminals, separating families, leaving children traumatized without parents, and spouses without partners, and caregivers or caretakers without their caregivers, and somebody I saw died because ICE took their caregiver. ICE, Border Patrol, and CBP are training these cops to enforce the law the immigration way. Less civil rights, violence, cover-up teams, and disappearances. There's no oversight into these gangs, no accountability. Complaints of violence and serious injuries are met with quick removals. American citizens are already being caught up in the raids. Again, this was in March of last year. I must be as direct as possible. We are a fascist country, a country unwilling to learn from its racism, doomed to constantly repeat its racist history. Cops who have falsely wrapped themselves in the charred flags of 9/11, which Israel did, by the way, are violating their oaths to the Constitution of the United States. I know that Jen would not agree with me on the 9/11 thing, but I got all kinds of evidence that can show her otherwise. This is a white supremacist purge and a Zionist purge. It is about restoring the nation to its original class system and redistributing the wealth back to the wealthy. resist, which means BDS. Do it with your wallet. That's the only thing these people give a shit about. That's it. All right. Fuck ICE, like I said. ICE, let's melt ICE. Seriously, like, abolish it. We don't need it. It was created after 9/11 under false pretenses to begin with, and it has only increased. And Democrats love to fund it too because it allows them to act like they're being tough and funding cops or funding security, but they're not making anybody secure. Nobody. Man. ICE is a tool of the deep state like the police. Sure they are. Of course they are. Yes. They're a tool of the wealthy. They protect property and not people. They protect profits over people. And now they're using people to generate profits. It's not about immigration. It's about violence and causing civil unrest. Agreed, Topher. I think that they want to do this as justification for enacting some kind of martial law and putting people in these facilities. And maybe even all of us for being anti-Zionist and being anti-capitalist and being anti-imperialist. And here's the horrible irony, as Lady Alex M points out, this is stolen land that we're all living on. There are no illegals. We're all illegal. The underpinnings of this nation are racism, greed, misogyny, and bloodlust. Poetic. Absolutely correct. So, I don't think you're going to get that on CNN or on corporate media. And we're completely user-funded, so if you're able to and of means, please support the media you want to see. The people that are on that board have already done that. Thank you so much for everyone who has. If you can't, please share the show. If you can, you got a couple of bucks. I know times are tough right now. The ways to do it are using Cash App, $ Indie News Network from your phone. Go to ko-fi.com/IndieNewsNetwork, and you can tip us with a $5 cup of coffee or $10, whatever you can. Then we got paypal.me/IndieNewsNetwork. Do that as friends and family. Patreon.com/IndieNewsNetwork. That's where you can subscribe monthly, or over at INNNewsletter.com, also a monthly subscription service or annual there. IndieNewsNow.com, that's the name of the show, but it's also a website where we aggregate and publish news, not just from us, but from over 100 different sources. And we co-stream live, and there's a link to the merch store, and there's more information about INN over there. And then we're streaming over to IndieMediaToday.com live right now. Thank you again. Shout out to the the Wombat over there, my friend. Talking Wombat. We need to start a green tie movement, like a yellow vest movement. Not a bad idea. I think they already started the yellow vest movement. Shout out. There's my brother Cowboy Kitty in the chat. We're going to talk about Natalia later on tonight during the GoFundMe segment. And that, oh my God, we're over an hour in, and I just got through our first segment. Holy shit, I got a lot to do. All right, like I said, this is going to be like a boats type of show tonight. So now we're going to talk about censorship. And there's been a lot of censorship ramping up, and it's been cross-platform. It's not happening just in one place, but it seems that it's happening everywhere all at once, which isn't really a surprise because that's kind of how this works. So what am I talking about? Well, Kevork Almassian, who is an independent creator, claims Al Jazeera is abusing copyright law to silence criticism. After he aired a brief clip, which again was under a minute, for a recent interview with Hamas's Khalid Mashal and criticized him as a hypocrite, Al Jazeera filed a copyright strike against his channel, Syriana Analysis. Now, what's funny is, again, let me finish his thing here. The clip was used strictly for commentary, criticism, and analysis, which falls squarely under fair use. Sounds familiar. Nevertheless, I immediately removed the clip from my 1-hour live stream, and that still wasn't enough. Al Jazeera still escalated and demanded the entire stream be taken down, despite the copyrighted material no longer being present. Using copyright claims to suppress political speech is a well-documented form of copyright abuse and a direct violation of the spirit and letter of fair use protections. On top of all of that, all right, he gets a strike to his channel. Sometimes he can't stream for a week. And if he gets multiple, a third one, they can take away his channel permanently. Right. So this literally happened to INN 2 summers ago. Al Jazeera, we used less than a minute of footage to show that a bombing, the difference between the bombing of a school in Ukraine and the bombing of a school in Gaza. And that bombing of a school in Gaza was Al Jazeera footage. It wasn't even critical of Al Jazeera. And it had the Al Jazeera logo the whole time it was up. And still, they copyright struck it, not just asked to have it taken down, but also even the clip that had never even been published yet, that was in our studio as a draft, we got struck for a second strike. That was 2 weeks without streaming. And if you got one more strike, you could lose your channel permanently. And we were freaking out for 90 days. We tried to get Al Jazeera to intervene. They didn't. We couldn't get anybody to respond. We just had to wait out the 90 days. The strikes came off and we went forward and never used Al Jazeera again. All right. So, number one, Al Jazeera is using it, but that's also an abuse of YouTube's copyright system. And YouTube is allowing for that. But Kevork wasn't the only one that's been targeted for his speech on YouTube. We talked about David Rovics a couple of weeks ago that YouTube had taken down his channel. Now they have permanently wiped out his channel. Discography's wiped and channels deleted. He says, if there's anyone out there interested in civil liberties, now might be a good time to help me sue YouTube for the sake of society at large. Yes, David Rovics, by the way, is an entertainer. He's a musician. He says the title uses the plural because I assume I'm not the only artist that this is happening to. But I have yet to hear of others aside from R. Kelly, who was actually convicted of running a criminal organization with lots of actual victims who testified in court. I know channel deletions have happened to a number of journalists, among many other people, who, like me, were not running or otherwise engaged with any criminal organizations. These removals are as outrageous as mine, but not quite the same thing. And there is the email from YouTube that says that it confirms that it violates the criminal organization's policy. We won't be putting your channel back up. What happens when an artist becomes possibly the first artist to have all their albums wiped from YouTube Music and then the YouTube channel they've had for 20 years deleted, all because their music allegedly was supportive of unnamed criminal organizations? As far as I can tell, basically nothing. Again, David Rovics, this is a Substack article. So for those on Substack, davidrovics.substack.com. ROVICS. Lots of expressions of sympathy, lots of completely bizarre advice, lots of comments from people who clearly have no understanding of the nature of the digital world we all live in these days, and no interest whatsoever from the mainstream media from anywhere in the world. Again, no surprise, because they don't want to end up like that. There are, of course, many other very pressing things to cover, what with the masked thugs killing people on the streets of the U.S. cities every day, Trump invading or threatening to invade everywhere, and so much more, and we've got that too. But I'll just say here, for whoever might be listening, and we are, the canary in this coal mine of artistic free expression just died. And I believe that any people or organizations concerned with the erosion of civil liberties in this world should be very interested in what YouTube just did. One of the more maddening aspects of the experience has been the realization that a tremendous number of people, especially people over the age of 40 or so, don't really seem to understand why having one's music wiped from YouTube Music or their YouTube channel deleted is a big deal. The suggestions people helpfully offer tend to confirm this. The most common one involves recommendations of other platforms that host videos. All right? The concerns people also express reflect this. The most common one is around the assumption that I must have lost a lot of content that I had stored there and nowhere else. I wonder if Orson Welles was blacklisted from working, when he was blacklisted from working in Hollywood, people offered him the use of their sheds to store his film reels, as if being blacklisted was somehow a storage issue. It's good to be positive and look for alternatives, but this stuff can get pretty weird. I get the impression that people over 40 aren't really aware that so much of what they see, read, and watch is controlled by corporate algorithms. What people once thought they understood about the various platforms has long ago stopped being true. When you're scrolling on any one of the major platforms, very much including YouTube, you're seeing what the corporate algorithms want you to see, that they think will keep your eyes glued to the screen. You're not seeing whatever your friends posted most recently. That stopped being the case over a decade ago on the platforms most of these folks are using, like Facebook. These algorithms are such a curse to us all in so many ways. They distort how we perceive reality and seem to be turning us into all into assholes. They're also crucial to the lives and livelihoods of musicians and other content creators, whether we like it or hate it. I'm not famous like Kneecap or Bob Villain or Roger Waters, and my disappearance from the internet will not likely apparently garner the kind of media attention that attacks on them have generated. But after 20 years on YouTube, a certain handful of videos of me singing a certain handful of songs have managed to get hundreds of thousands of views. Once a video gets views in that sort of number, it tends to get put into the recommendation algorithms. That means that when someone's into Irish rebel music and they're listening to Clancy Brothers or the Irish Brigade, there's a good chance my song, the St. Patrick Battalion, will eventually come up in YouTube's recommendation algorithm, unless they take it down. These algorithms are how so many people today discover new music, new videos, the next thing to watch or read or listen to, or on whatever platform or device. And if you're looking for a video, not only are these algorithms going to determine most of what you're probably going to end up watching, but the place you're going to do that is likely going to either be YouTube or TikTok. Maybe not today, and we're going to talk about TikTok in a minute. If you're looking for music, the platform you're most likely going to be doing that on is Spotify, or secondarily, YouTube Music. If you're looking for an event of some kind, the first place many people are likely to search is on the events tab on Facebook. God, why? If you need a ride and you're not sure where to find one, then the first place you're likely to look is on the Uber app on your phone. These corporations have all succeeded in becoming functionally monopolies. The music is on Spotify, the videos are on YouTube. These platforms are places where millions of people basically live. If music or videos, listeners or viewers might like are not coming up, they don't exist. So many people don't go to websites and intentionally do things like look for an artist that's never come up for them on the platforms they use, just like so many people don't bother looking beyond Amazon for a product they might be looking to buy. Bandcamp also exists, but notice he's not mentioning them. He's mentioning Spotify, which has spent hundreds of billions of dollars in marketing to get you to know their name. Like he says, alternatives exist, but most people are watching videos on YouTube and listening to music on Spotify. This, by the way, is Reef's argument, is you can find alternative platforms. That's great, but this is where the people are. Same thing with Facebook. 3.4 billion users. Half the fucking planet uses Facebook. Those are the platforms on which they're creating and sharing playlists. The platforms serve the online function of being like the collective living room the place where people gather, just as Facebook and Instagram are so often the places people feel very dependent on for keeping up with what's happening with friends and family and even local physical communities. A lot of news makes it into that news feed, doesn't it? So, in case it's not abundantly obvious where this is all leading up to, having your YouTube channel deleted is a form of a disappearance. It's akin to blacklisting, book burning. What's all the more outrageous is the blanket nature of the action. It's not a complaint about a specific piece of art, but about the existence of the artist online. Some of the impact is measured numerically. Many thousands of songs that would otherwise have come up as the next track for people exploring YouTube or YouTube Music each month will no longer come up. Many thousands of people each month who would have discovered my music for the first time will no longer do so. Not on YouTube or YouTube Music, which again is YouTube's music streaming platform. I'm not allowed to start a new channel without thoroughly disguising my identity, but even if I could do that, it wouldn't get my music back into the recommendation algorithms anytime soon. Other people are still able to put up videos of me, but other people putting up videos of me doesn't help people see where my next show is. One of the main ways that people find out if an artist they like is coming to their area is through a tab on YouTube that viewers can see if the artist they're listening to that has that going on, which the vast majority of serious working artists alive today. The existence of this tab, however, requires that the artist first has a channel. Being that Facebook is also a monopoly in the same way that YouTube is, it's notable that David is prevented from using the invite feature on events. Being able to invite people to events is the most useful thing anyone can do on Facebook, and this feature is permanently disabled for him. How convenient, as far as he can tell. This is also a very real and damaging form of blacklisting. If an artist is blacklisted, but the media never really paid attention to them in the first place, were they really blacklisted? The thing that has been different about the internet, and even walled garden corporate platforms like YouTube or Spotify, is that artists who had no success with corporate radio airplay or appearing on TV shows or in movies could now put their stuff out there on platforms where the existence of their audience engaging with their content on these platforms could propel their art or music further. So more people could hear it because of the dominance of recommendation algorithms. Despite never getting corporate airplay or promotion or putting out fancy corporate sponsored music videos, doing music that would just never be touched with a long pole by corporate labels in the first place, David had gotten to the point on YouTube, just as with Spotify, where his songs were altogether being streamed 1 million times in a given year. That's a lot. While really famous artists are getting million streams a day, no doubt, the disappearance of an artist like David and the loss of those million streams to the public consciousness should be very worrying to people other than David. It is to me. I don't want anyone to ask David. He doesn't want anyone to ask him what he's going to do next. This is akin to asking the canary what should be done about the coal mine. I want to hear about what other people and organizations like the ACLU and the EFF and others are going to do next. Are they going to stand up and defend him like they did to Guy Christensen? By the way, this is some of the places that David will be playing live coming up. If you're in the area, please go support his live music. DavidRovics.com. Go to his website /tour. You can find out the dates. And again, subscribe to davidrovics.substack.com and make sure that he is not silenced and erased. Tell people about what's happening to him. I hope this means you'll stop writing songs. This doesn't mean you'll stop writing songs about Luigi Mangione's chest hair. I'm guessing he won't. He's a folk singer. He writes about folk heroes. So, Now this is YouTube censoring Kevork Almasian at the behest of Al Jazeera. Now remember, we also talked a couple of months ago about Johnny Vedmore and how there was a British billionaire that was using the copyright system on Rumble and Substack to silence him, as well as Nicole Junkerman. So this is something that's being used to silence voices of dissent and voices that are trying to out what's really happening out there. There's also a new organization out on Substack that has been calling out this whole age verification stuff that has been under the guise of protecting children. Well, Indie Media Award honoree Vanessa Beeley signed on to this letter, this open letter to Substack about the inappropriate implementation of age verification and requirements to produce papers. CEO Chris Best ignored a DM. The company has not responded to any email. They responded to nothing in tagging in messages. So they drafted an open letter and published it. They'll be following up on all these channels, and it could be that Substack isn't too bothered about the problems that it's causing their combined 60,000 subscribers, or the fall of the drop in subscriptions for all these different creators. Subscribers are also encouraged, if you support any of these channels like Geopolitics and Empire, Hervoye and Doc Malik and Vanessa, which I'm a subscriber, also encouraged to write. Remember that Substack has no obligation to impose age verification on our material, which is clearly not harmful. In fact, imposing these hurdles appears to be a breach of the UK's Online Safety Act, according to Ofcom. What do we mean? I don't know if I'm going to be able to make this big enough. So this is a letter again. I'll read it real quick. Dear Mr. Best, collectively, we represent Substack writers with over 60,000 subscribers in aggregate. Many of us have been contacted by our subscribers informing us that Substack has imposed age verification requirements in order to access parts of our written content. These restrictions seem to apply to both chats and notes function. The impact on regular posts is less clear. A screen grab of an age verification challenge is shown below. The introduction of these age verification checks has a material negative impact on our subscribers, and all of us are, to varying degrees, experiencing significant contractions in paid subscriber numbers from the point at which Substack started introducing these checks. Remember, paid subscribers is Substack's whole goal here. Substack has written about this general opposition to legislation, which seeks to police free speech, and has suggested that the UK Online Safety Act, or the OSA, is the reason why Substack has had to introduce age verification restrictions. However, this explanation does not appear to be valid in the case of the OSA, which should have no impact on our accounts or on our subscribers. Under the UK Online Safety Act, regulated providers are required, inter alia, to introduce highly effective age assurance to prevent children from accessing primary priority content, such as pornography and content encouraging self-harm, and to prevent access to priority content. Okay. Substack also publishes its own list of content restricted to adults 18 plus, which is largely derived from the OSA. How interesting. None of our accounts comes anywhere close to producing any content that could be considered primary priority content or priority content, or that falls within the scope of Substack's own content restriction for adults. Substack's imposition of age verification requirements appears to be unjustified. In fact, Ofcom recently made it clear that there are no provisions in the OSA that require age verification steps to be introduced for content that is not harmful. Introducing such age restrictions may represent a breach of Substack's requirement to protect users' rights to freedom of expression, as set out under Part 1, Section 1 of the OSA. They're violating the law by doing this. Substack acknowledges the possibility for potential errors and mislabeling of account content. However, it appears very unlikely that these restrictions have been applied to a group of accounts who, broadly speaking, produce similar content that challenges the mainstream narrative by chance. How about that? How convenient. Anti-Zionist content specifically, but also COVID stuff, anti-Big Pharma. In our capacity as users, we have not faced equivalent restrictions when accessing mainstream media content posted on Substack, for example, by the Free Press, which publishes Zionist propaganda nonstop, whitewashing genocide. The selective classification of our content as age-restricted does not appear to be a random mislabeling error. In line with Substack's requirement to act transparently, we would be interested to know how it was that our content or parts of our content came to be identified as age-restricted. Was this determination made by algorithms? What keywords or phrases were searched for in order to achieve this determination, given the fact that none of our accounts include bad language, indecent images, or anything remotely resembling adult content? They don't use the word cunt like I do. I don't give a fuck. Fuck these cunts. We believe that regulated service providers are regulated under the OSA to provide transparency on such matters. Yeah, they should. If they're going to age restrict, they got to tell you why they're age restricting. We hope that we can engage constructively on these concerns, and we reserve the right to seek compensation in the event that it's confirmed that our accounts have been wrongly targeted and our subscribers inconvenienced. As noted above, most of us have witnessed material reductions in paid subscriptions income starting at around the time that Substack started introducing age verification requirements on our content, which was December 11th, 2025. That's when people started seeing this stuff implemented, when the Australian OSA went into effect. We believe that regulated service providers are required under the OSA, again, to provide transparency. These reversals have been significant and completely against long-standing positive trends, again, suggesting that this is a result of your actions rather than a result of market factors. They didn't just unsubscribe en masse and then demand a refund on top of it, which then causes Stripe to implement more fees that they have to reach into their pocket. And I covered that extensively both here and on Indie's Tech Tips. The bullshit that Stripe is putting these people through, on top of their subscribers being age restricted and having to now biometrically prove that they're adults, even though the content is not harmful or adult related. You will doubtless be aware that the Trump administration takes a dim view of infringements on free speech and the imposition of censorship, and has already sanctioned non-U.S. nationals who are deemed to be restricting free speech of U.S. citizens. I hope that we can achieve some constructive dialogue on these points via email or Substack messaging or face-to-face. We are open to any such dialogue, but we do not wish to be referred to the OSA standard appeal that's given to the same small comment box that doesn't allow for a multi-writer submission, doesn't allow for the inclusion of any content, and doesn't allow us to raise the question of compensation. Because the next thing is they're going to start hearing from lawyers. We look forward to hearing from you in due course. And I'm glad Vanessa signed off on that. I would sign off on that too. This is from, again, the Thinking Coalition. If you want to stay updated, go to @Thinking Coalition over on Substack. So again, Substack is also censoring specifically, again, content that challenges the narrative. I'm guessing Caitlin Johnstone would also fall under this category. Now, we talked about a month ago about how Mint Press News was targeted by Indiegogo. They raised $51,000 from subscribers and readers in an Indiegogo fundraising campaign. And then Indiegogo froze it after that when they went to collect. Well, they found out who was behind it. It was an IDF OnlyFans model that was responsible for this. So I got this email from Minar, who's the founder of Mint Press News. And by the way, I also talked to Alan Macleod about specifically this campaign in my one-on-one with him last week. And again, I'll drop the link to that in the description afterwards and in the Substack. IDF OnlyFans model responsible for Indiegogo campaign shutdown. Only in this world. Dear supporters, we're getting closer to figuring out why our fundraiser on Indiegogo was taken down and our $51,000 withheld. We believe it may be connected to Natalia Fadiv. She's an Israeli OnlyFans model and an active duty soldier that we exposed in a recent investigation as the Israeli military's official thirst trap to manipulate young men. Help us recover our funds and pay our staff by donating directly to the website. So here's what happened. Last month, Indiegogo took down the Mint Press fundraiser and withheld their $51,000. In the same week, Google took down the article promoting the Indiegogo fundraiser call to action on their website, flagging it for copyright violations. Again, remember how they used copyright to go after Kavor with Al Jazeera. Soon after, we were notified by Google that the copyright violation was filed by a legal team in Tel Aviv representing Natalia Fadiv. We knew exactly who she was. However, the fundraising article does not mention her nor use any of her photos. We appealed and Google reinstated our fundraising article, but it was too late. Indiegogo already took down our fundraiser and withheld the funds. Is this a coincidence, or was it Natalia Fadiv was she part of the organized campaign to shut down this fundraiser on Indiegogo? I wonder how she got him to hold the funds. A phone call? Yes, IDF OnlyFans model. That's correct, Descent Bloom. Indiegogo said that it's refunding the donors. Use that refund and support them directly without the middleman. They still need to recover 30,000 of the 51. So please help them if you're able to. Again, go to mintpressnews.com/donations to help them. Yeah, her kosher tuchus. I don't know if her kosher tuchus is what did it. All right, that's not what got them to do it. They sued them and they threatened Indiegogo with a lawsuit. Okay? So now you've got Indiegogo, you've got YouTube, you've got Substack, but it doesn't end there. This one came out in the last 24 hours. Meta whistleblowers are saying that WhatsApp's private messages that are supposed to be secure can be accessed by the company despite assurances of end-to-end encryption. We've been warning about this for a while. There is no end-to-end encryption. A lawsuit filed in U.S. court alleges that Meta misled billions of users worldwide into believing that their chats were fully private. Yeah, not so much. All right. Who runs Meta again? Here's Israeli pedo Tom Alexandrovich before he got caught, explaining how he's taken down 90% of anti-Israel posts on Meta thanks to his censorship efforts. That's the dude that they shuffled out of the country, and he's hiding in Israel right now. They were going to arrest him on some kind of child pornography charges in Vegas. But Netanyahu personally intervened, got him put on a plane to Tel Aviv, and he's stuck, and he's now in Israel. Okay, but worse than that, all right, I also talked with Alan Macleod, who reminded us that the guy who runs content moderation at Facebook used to give the presidential daily briefing from the CIA to Obama and Trump. So CIA is literally running content moderation at Facebook. Next, Guy Christensen. We're going to talk a little bit more about him in a little bit. Wake up. Ellison buys CBS News and installs Barry Weiss. Ellison buys TikTok and installs Adam Presser. When Ellison buys CNN, what's going to happen? The monopoly must be shattered. So what do we mean? Lonnie talks about how she posted this on her TikTok story 23 hours ago. Usually she'd have some views by then. Due to its political nature, all her stories have been forcibly hit with 0 views. TikTok is now fully censored and ownership is in American hands, but we won't be silent. More updates to come. All right, so this was on Sunday in the middle of a snowstorm. Half the country's blanketed under snow. They're all trapped inside, and all of a sudden, anyone making content on TikTok can't get it out there. And TikTok basically took their servers down, and nobody could post anything. Hello, everyone. TikTok is censoring all content that doesn't kiss Trump's ass and worship ICE. So unfortunately for everyone, including me, I'm here now. Okay. Next, TikTok removed a text post for violating community guidelines. TikTok censorship is anti-American in every way imaginable. The penguin is propaganda was the text. And that's apparently too much for fascists. That's literally the post. No views. Not allowed to go anywhere. Removed for violating community guidelines. You're not allowed to use the word propaganda now. Here's TikTok's own statement from Vince Wilson, whoever that is. You can't tell me it's pure coincidence that left-wing creators are being silenced on TikTok after it was transferred over last week. All right, here's the Tennessee holler. TikTok is cooked. Our TikTok videos went from tens of thousands to 0. Seemingly a direct result of Trump and Bibi's friends taking over. Super suppressed. Just seeing this 9 hours after it was posted. Can't repost. Suppression is wild. There's some videos with tens of thousands of views. These all have 0. And they basically stop them from going viral and being seen at all. Ty Yeager says stop using TikTok. Besides the brain rot it produces and fucks with your attention span, actual censorship is happening in abundance, especially anti-ICE and anti-Israel sentiment. Totally agree there. I've never installed the TikTok app on my phone, ever. It's never once been on my phone. Yes, they bought the UFC away from ESPN with a $7.7 billion contract that there's no way they're ever going to financially recover. Except they're going to gouge everybody to watch it, even though they said they wouldn't. Here's another one. For anyone else typing TikTok down in the search bar, someone posted this. TikTok is still not making a statement is crazy. And it seems like most, if not all, newly posted videos are getting 0 views. Not just political, everything. They claim that it was outage at a U.S. data center. But my question there is, they don't have multiple redundant backup servers worldwide? This seems fishy as fuck. All right. Creators may temporarily see 0 views or likes. So it was temporary, but it caused a mass panic and a mass exodus. Led by this guy, Guy Christensen. TikTok users are fleeing to upstart social media called Upscrolled after Larry Ellison purchased the platform. Upscrolled is founded by a Palestinian Australian who worked for Oracle, but yes, and promises no censorship and no billionaires. But we all know that that's not going to happen. Yesterday, it broke into the top 15 of the most downloaded apps. Come join us. And a guy is connected to it. Right? I'm on Upscroll, like he said. There's all the links at Guy on Upscroll. Yesterday, it broke into the top 15. Today, it literally hit number 1. Earlier today, Decensored News, Indie Media Award honoree, Upscrolled, which is a new competitor to platforms like TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter, more like Twitter so far. They're going to have TikTok-like features, but they don't yet. Now says they're getting thousands of new users per hour. They got flooded to the point where people weren't able to see new content and it was getting broken often. Okay. Decensored News is also now on Upscrolled, so you can follow them there. There it was showing as number 12. Earlier today, it hit number 2, and then it passed ChatGPT as the number 1 downloaded app in the world on the iPhone App Store. That is substantial. More than Paramount, more than Threads, more than anything else. Upscrolled was now number 1 by the end of today. But that was not met without a healthy dose of skepticism for much of the fam. This also, by the way, is an Indie Media Award honoree for video creation from 2023, post-duopolist at Dirtbag Left 1. Out of nowhere, I keep seeing this Upscrolled app popping up on my feed. Can someone explain why I should trust an investor-backed company out of Australia with vague rules for what you can post? Eventually, investors are going to want returns, and the app will go to shit. That's called enshittification, coined by Cory Doctorow. So, he did a search. Does Upscrolled impose any censorship? They say already, we only restrict content that violates our community guidelines or broadly accepted legal and ethical standards, includes content involving illegal activity, hate speech, bullying, harassment, explicit nudity, unlicensed copyrighted material, or anything intended to cause harm. Now, also, unlicensed copyrighted material could also be a problem, like we've been seeing of the people that have had copyright claims filed against them and had their content taken down on multiple platforms, like we've talked about tonight. And yes, define hate speech. Thank you, Lady Alex M. What does that mean? So I answer post-duopolist to say that we've been playing platform whack-a-mole for 5 years, trying to stay a step ahead of the censors. Why should we stop now? Like, I'm not believing that this is going to be any better. First of all, they don't even have a desktop version. You can't even go to it from a browser yet. You have to download an app either via the Apple App Store or the Android App Store. He said, right. It's just like some people are acting like it's a panacea because they don't, quote unquote, censor right now, like people did with Rumble. I have no reason to believe it is. Like we did with Substack for a while. And now we see that that's changing. I said, I did it more for defensive purposes. I also set up Upscrolled, so you can find me at Indie, ATINN, Indie at INN there. All right. To secure the username more than anything else. And who knows? I have a Blue Sky or Blue Cry account. That's barely used. Even Mastodon. I'm still mostly here on Twitter and on Substack Notes. Here, Jax Page, another fan of the show and supporter of INN. I don't trust Upscrolled or Twitter. I'm building an account over there, and I don't have any hope of it being the be-all, end-all, but maybe people realize, won't get their accounts taken down so easily. Constantly amazed that hers hasn't been yet. And I agree. And, I love Jax. She's great. She shouldn't have her stuff taken down. Again, American, living in Mexico, free speech. So that's post-duopolist. INN member, and hopefully still in this chat, Angel Rivera, the handsome cynic. Go check him out on Friday on Angel in the Afternoon. Okay. He asked me, what's Upscrolled? And I said, it's a Twitter-type app out of Australia the TikTok users are flocking to en masse after TikTok dropped the hammer on anti-Zionist content and anti-ICE content. They only have an app for Android and iPhone right now, and their servers are getting flooded or overwhelmed. That was yesterday. So Angel said something really funny that, it's the next app that the U.S. government will demand that an American owns so they can censor it, lol. Them and or Israel agreed. Yes, Angel. Nailed it. And finally, let's get a little bit more opposition research. Now, this is happening in real time, and I usually don't like to be what we call reactionary, which is to report on a story as it's still growing and developing. I like to have something buttoned up and kind of report from hindsight, like, here's what happened, here's what everybody thought happened, here's what actually went down. So it could be that this is not really what's happening, but it sure seems like it. Sir Escanor, we've certainly used some of his tweets and posts in the past over on Substack, posted this over on Twitter, so about Upscrolled. And he's a conspiracy realist, and I wouldn't call him a theorist because he's been right more than he's wrong. Is it a coincidence that it starts popping off right as TikTok starts acting weird and censoring keywords like Epstein? Or WhatsApp gets caught again in privacy and trust drama? We just covered both those things. And then you look at the founder, Issam Hijazi, Palestinian, Jordanian, Australian, who's spoken about losing family in Gaza and says that pain is part of what pushed him to build a platform that isn't hostile to pro-Palestinian voices. But he's not some random outsider coder either. He's held senior roles at IBM, Hitachi, and Oracle. Oracle, as in the enterprise data empire that's been tied to TikTok's infrastructure and data partner narratives for years. So let me get this straight. The old platform starts censoring everything, while a new platform with a founder trained in big tech systems suddenly catches wind, and Twitter and its influencers all start parading it around right on cue? Sure, total coincidence, or it's the same play as always. One platform becomes the villain, another becomes the escape hatch, and both harvest the migration. You tell me. So here's his graphic about Issam and about Upscrolled. All right. How to perfect Lambda architecture with Oracle Data Integrator, written by Issam 9 years ago. Are they using Oracle servers? Are they tied? Are there any links to Larry Ellison within this entire thing? I certainly have questions. Guy tried to answer some of those questions. Here's another one. Upscrolled might be fun. It might even be better than TikTok or Twitter for certain topics, but it's not a bastion of freedom. It's the same platform machine in a new outfit. Australian run, and Australia ain't exactly the world capital of free speech. Ireland hosting is framed as an aim. That's not a guarantee, and processing still runs through global cloud and service providers. Modern cloud stack. They openly mention using data centers and cloud providers across the world, the same big tech architecture, not a cozy independent server. Remember what happened to Parler after January 6th? First of all, it was hosted on Amazon servers. They then used the location data to target anyone in the area that had the Parler app loaded on their phone and track their movements right back home. Yeah, we covered that on How Did We Miss That Too? Behavioral metrics are baked in. Clicks, engagement, link tracking, user journey analytics, the usual behavior telemetry. Oh, also geo-targeting, geolocations turned on by default on photos. That happened to me today when I went to post a merch store photo. I had to turn off the location. They describe collecting engagement and usage signals and using them to measure or analyze behavior and improve the platform. They even mention user journey type analytics and link click tracking. That's behavioral telemetry, full stop. Its small group of investors, quote unquote, will be something to keep an eye out for as well. So yeah, enjoy it if you like. Just don't delude yourself into thinking that it won't drift the same way all platforms do. Growth, pressure, compliance, the same cage with a fresh paint job. Again, Australia doesn't help anything. No heroes, no halos, end hopium. Remember, this is Sir Escanor, calls himself the Hopium Slayer. And he's not wrong about any of that. Censorship is here, and it's cross-platform, folks. In case you were questioning, it's just a matter of when it comes to you and whether you post content that is deemed worthy of censorship, sadly. All right. So there's, man, we still have fuck Israel to get to, and it's only midnight. It's already midnight. All right. Luckily, fuck Israel's not that long tonight, and then we'll have lightning round, and we'll probably be here till about 12:30. Thanks to everyone who hangs with us. Support independent media because we need it more than ever. Everybody there already has. Thank you so much to everyone on that list. Thank you to everyone that continues to support the continual supporters like Margaret Villa and Jonathan Henrich and Fred Edward and Paula Isella and Anna Mayers and Sean the Accord Lord Miller. My goodness. Love you, Sean. And Natalie Williams and Ralph Mejia and my friend Descent in Bloom still in chat also. Thank you to everybody. Really, it's so important that you help fund independent media. And Talking Wombat, I feel sorry for those poor kangaroos in Australia. Me too. And for my cunt brother Harps, for that matter. Who can't even get on Substack because he won't bend the knee to age verification. All right. So, $ Indie News Network over on Cash App. Ko-fi.com/Indie News Network if you're able to and you have a couple bucks. PayPal.me/Indie News Network as friends and family. Patreon.com/Indie News Network for the monthly subscription. Over at IndieMediaToday.com, we're live there on Substack. We're also on INNNewsletter.com at Substack. You can subscribe monthly or annually there. And then also at IndieNewsNow.com, we actually co-stream live and self-host there. So if the platforms all decide to shut us down and censor us, we're still going live to IndieNewsNow.com. But it's also a news aggregator with more than 100 different sources, completely independent and ad-free that I have curated and added all the sources to. And it updates 24/7 automatically. So please support that as well. Bookmark IndieNewsNow.com. Keep coming back to it, and you'll see a steady stream of new articles there. 9:57 on the West Coast or the West Coast. Thank you, Kate. I'm on the East Coast, and we're almost midnight here. That's right. Okay. I want to get to some fuck Israel stuff because we haven't gotten to that yet, and we still do that every week because Israel is forcing us to because they continue to murder people, occupy and take more and more of Gaza, but still also invade other sovereign countries and impact foreign policy in sovereign countries. Remember, a lot of what the ICE shit that started was because they wanted to censor people over anti-Israel and pro-Palestinian content. Independent journalist Mara Osman said, breaking in Jolani, Syria. Syria has now banned Palestinians from entering its territory without a sponsor or a kafil. Syria was once a refuge where the world turned its back. When the world turned its back, it not only hosted Palestinians, it granted them dignity, citizenship, rights, protection, education, shelter, and a sense of belonging that no other state ever truly offered. Syria carried the Palestinian cause not as a slogan like Turkey and Qatar did, but as a moral responsibility. And now along comes Jolani, ISIS Jolani, bowing fully to Netanyahu's will, dismantling that legacy, turning solidarity into submission and resilience into obedience, or resistance into obedience. What was once a sanctuary is being reshaped into a checkpoint of humiliation. This is what it simply is: betrayal, treachery, and surrender. What an ummah this has become. An ummah where Palestine is invoked in speeches but abandoned in policy. An ummah where slogans are loud and principles are silent. An ummah of betrayal and treachery. Okay. So I brought an article from another Indie Media Award honoree, Richard Medhurst, who has been going through his own censorship and persecution by authorities now in Austria, after now apparently having charges dropped in the UK, allegedly. He wrote an article, and this is what woke me up to this, and I actually reached out to Vanessa, and I'm like, is this real? Like, I haven't seen anybody else talking about this. She's like, yeah, apparently everybody is talking about this. There's Marwa talking about it. Jolani bans Palestinians from entering Syria without an entry permit, dismantling long-standing legal protections that treated Palestinians as equals in Syria. So now, literally, like, the only place the Palestinians did get equal treatment, they don't have. The Jolani regime in Damascus has imposed sweeping new entry restrictions on Palestinians. Isn't that nice? Ending decades of open entry rights. On January 20th of this year, the Palestinian embassy in Syria confirmed that Palestinian travel document holders are now barred from entering the country without prior authorization. What does that mean? Well, under the new regulations, entry now requires permit approval through the Ministry of Interior and a formal sponsor or a relative already residing in the country. This policy effectively nullifies Law Number 260, passed in 1956. For 70 years, this landmark legislation made Syria the only Arab nation to grant Palestinians rights equal to those of its citizens. While Palestinians were denied citizenship to protect their right of return and prevent permanent displacement, Law 260 ensured that they could work, own property, and access state services, which are rights that are often denied to them in neighboring countries like Lebanon, where Palestinians are barred from owning property. This restriction follows an attempt by the regime last year to reclassify Palestinians as foreigners. Although the administration later attributed that decision to a technical glitch, critics argued that these actions represent a calculated dismantling of Palestinian civil liberties, which is, of course, what it is. Since seizing power in December of 2024, the Jolani regime, which is formerly al-Nusra or al-Qaeda, has targeted both Palestinian civil rights and the infrastructure of resistance groups based in Syria. Shortly after declaring himself president, remember, nobody voted for him, Jolani ordered the arrest and disarmament of several Palestinian factions that had long maintained headquarters in Damascus, including Palestinian Islamic Jihad, Fatah, the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, and the PLFP General Command, GC. Reports confirmed that Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, or HTS forces, confiscated weapons and military hardware from these factions. Remember, HTS is like the new al-Qaeda, al-Nusra. Consequently, many Palestinian figures fled the country or were arrested by Jolani's forces outright, a move that could only be considered a strategic victory for Israel. Wasn't ordered by Netanyahu or CIA. It might have been, or the White Helmets. Jolani's betrayal of the Palestinian cause aligns perfectly with his total inaction toward Israeli expansion. Immediately following the fall of the previous government, Israel seized Mount Hermon, the highest strategic peak in the Levant, right under Jolani's nose without firing a shot. As the regime stood by, Israel bombed Syria over 500 times in just a few days, destroying a military arsenal that took 50 years of research and development to build under painstaking sanctions. He didn't give a shit. Israel destroyed Syria's entire array of air defenses, a system that even Israelis themselves admit was the most advanced in the region. Furthermore, Israel has seized Syrian territory twice the size of Gaza in the Golan Heights, stealing it along with 30% of Syria's water supply. And there's a link there to look at the Cradle article that's talking about that. This aggressive water grab campaign continues a long Israeli practice of stealing Palestinian and Arab water resources. Israeli occupation forces now conduct regular incursions, including raids into the Quneitra countryside, where many youths have been abducted. Sounds like ICE. Again, Jolani says and does nothing. Despite old videos of Jolani professing support for Palestine, his actions tell a very different story. Perhaps that too was just a phase, which is how he described his time in Al-Qaeda and ISIS, now that he's being kind of cleaned up and Zelensky'd around the world. This hypocrisy extends to all those who claim to oppose Israel's genocide in Gaza, but went on to cheer the overthrow of the Syrian government in December of 2024, the one Arab government that supported the Palestinian resistance. They're oddly silent today as Jolani betrays the very cause they claim to support. They massacre minorities and rules with an iron fist. Democracy and human rights in Syria no longer seem to interest them now that Israel's been satiated. Just like Libya, just like Iraq. Those who seek to label this a revolution seek to deny the evidence. An armada of nations was sent to destroy Syria, specifically for its support for the Palestinian cause. Netanyahu even filmed a victory lap in the Golan, while Macron and Rutte have reportedly gloated to Trump about the result. As I and only a handful of others forewarned, meaning Richard Medhurst, Indie Media Award honoree, Syria has also become a launch pad against Iran. During the 12-day war, Jolani took no issue as Syrian airspace was used by Israel and its allies to bomb Iran. Coincidentally, the only other country in the region that also supports the Palestinian cause. Instead, his regime sent emissaries for direct talks with Israel. Defenders of the Jolani regime claim that these new restrictions are pragmatic security coordination. They're just licking the boot. However, such a trade is like putting one's arm inside an alligator's jaw to keep from being eaten. What does Syria get in return after Jolani has already surrendered its land, water, and air defenses for free? To negotiate from such a position of weakness is a total surrender of sovereignty. The excuses provided by the regime are almost worse than the betrayal itself, or, as the Arabic saying goes, an excuse uglier than the sin. For decades, Syria's refusal to join the international banking system, SWIFT, or normalize relations with Israel was rooted in its unwavering support for Palestinian sovereignty. Today, as Jolani's regime moves toward normalization, stripping Syria of its dignity and Palestinians of their civil liberties, it becomes clear that this revolution was not a liberation. Instead, it was the calculated destruction, balkanization of the last Arab state that treated Palestinians as equals. Whether Jolani is a willing asset or a so-called pragmatic politician, the result remains the same. The systematic destruction of the Palestinian cause within the heart of the Levant. Again, support Richard. Subscribe to his Substack, richardmedhurst.substack.com. First time he's published there in a long time. He's also on YouTube, and I believe he's also on Rumble and on Telegram as well. t.me/Richard Medhurst. But I got more fuck Israel because Syria is only one part of it. Because remember, they're also invading Lebanon, another sovereign country that did not invade them, which they claim supported Hamas, but never provided any evidence for. They took out all of Hezbollah's leadership and continue to invade the country and occupy and blow up city blocks. And now we see Israeli strikes on southern Lebanon kill at least 2 from Indie Media Award honoree antiwar.com. The IDF claims that the killed was a Hezbollah operative, but the locals say he was a school teacher. Again, call him a terrorist even though he wasn't. That's the IDF playbook. Israel is once again carrying out airstrikes across southern and eastern Lebanon today, with strikes killing at least 2 people and wounding 1 other, and the IDF offering the usual pretext that the targets were all Hezbollah infrastructure of one form or another. Yeah, with 0 evidence shown whatsoever. Trust me, bro. Even though they've lied every single fucking time. Attacks occurred across the south, but the first major strike was near Kirbet Selm, targeting a warehouse which the IDF claimed was being used by Hezbollah to manufacture weapons. Again, they provided no evidence of this, just like we do with the drug boats allegedly in the Caribbean, but 1 person was reported killed and at least 1 other wounded in the strike. The other fatal strike was near Tyre. I remember there was a massive warehouse facility that blew up a couple years ago there, targeting a car between Barish and Marub, killing the driver. The strike was near the gas company, and the IDF claimed that the slain man was, again, a Hezbollah operative, again, without evidence. It is here that the lack of evidence, while common in Israeli strikes, becomes a serious dispute, as local media outlets identified the slain and in the second strike as Mohammed al-Husani, who was a local school teacher. Several other villages in the southern parts of Lebanon were struck, including Aida al-Shab and Buslaya. Further strikes were reported in the eastern Bekaa Valley, striking mountains near Nabichit, and claiming that the target again was Hezbollah infrastructure. Just call it all terrorist. The IDF statement, and who gives a shit what they say, claimed that the infrastructure in Nabichit violated the ceasefire, which is a common claim when they attack any area, even though they didn't specify what was meant to be there. There was no report of casualties, and Nabichit is far north of the Litani River, not where the ceasefire is even in effect. Under the terms of the ceasefire, Hezbollah was meant to be removed from south of the Litani, but now again Israeli strikes seem to target north of the river as often as the south, and the IDF justifications seem to never change, nor does the lack of evidence on what was actually targeted. I would not even quote their statements anymore. They're not worthy. Like, it's just lies. Again, Jason Ditz, senior editor, antiwar.com. So we've got that. But remember that there was also, we talked about this Gaza master plan. So last week, or earlier in the week, Reef put together a mega thread reminding people that he and Colin and I have all been talking about this Gaza reconstruction plan that Trump and Kushner right now are pushing, and the new Gaza Board of Peace, whatever, again, the most dystopian names that you can imagine, saying exactly the opposite of what these things actually are. Kushner at the World Economic Forum this week unveiled New Gaza. But it's not new because, like Reeves pointed out, he and Colin covered this back in September. All right. And that included the planned creation of smart cities, with more slides below. The most recent revisions here, some key slides from that slideshow. Most people never saw this. The MBS Ring and MBZ Central Highway, the regional water hub. And remember all these circles. And if you look at the map and the newest layout that they just laid out, it has a lot of these circles on there and these different zones that Kushner's talking about. Okay. Private industry CapEx. That's building data centers there, a regional data center. Similar slides for other avenues in Gaza, public-private partnerships, workforce development, infrastructure rebuilding, and permanent Gaza housing, but not for the Palestinians. Gaza security, and who's going to profit from that? Academy, that's, what's his name? DeVos's brother, Eric Prince. But then, of course, last but not least, the return on investment. The net asset value by year 10 will be worth $320 billion just in the real estate alone, let alone the resources that they're stealing underneath. And then he reminds people that back in May of 2024, when Biden was still president, we read a Vanessa Beeley article that lifted out of Ynet that literally laid out the sketch and graphics for Gaza 2035, where we said Israel has included no plan for the Palestinian people. That is what is being executed and pushed through right now. So again, I'll link to all these, and you can go back through and watch all these clips from INN News, as well as from How Did We Miss That 2 years ago? Okay, literally. The suspicion that this show hasn't changed that much. We've been around doing this a long time. All right, the Elon Musk manufacturing zone for EV. They want to manufacture EV batteries there. All right, there's all, it's not to scale by any stretch of the imagination. All right, you see all the sultans and them standing there in their Fias and turbans, right? This is a really long article that I'm not going to read, but I'm going to link to and tell everyone to go read about Trump's Board of Peace is actually the nail in Gaza's coffin. It's a 19-minute listen. So I'm not going to read it. He originally published it in Middle East Eye. All right, so go check that one out. I did bring another anti-war article, this one by Indie Media Award honoree Kyle Anzalone. And this is important because, you know, they claimed the ceasefire. Now, I also saw that the other day, the last Israeli hostage, quote unquote, dead hostage, was recovered from Gaza. So now they have no reason not to implement whatever next step of the ceasefire they had claimed they were holding off because they hadn't gotten all the remains back. They have all the remains. There's no reason for them to enter the next phase, which also includes opening the Rafah crossing to international journalists. However, guess what? They're not doing that. Tel Aviv has barred nearly all entry of foreign journalists into Gaza over the past 2 years, which we know, and they're going to continue to do that, and they'll only allow people there on propaganda tours. Israel has agreed to allow some traffic through Gaza's border traffic crossing with Egypt, but will continue to bar journalists from entering the Strip. Why would you want them to document just how bad it is? All right. As part of that 20-point plan, Israel has agreed to a limited reopening of the Rafah crossing for pedestrian passage only, meaning all the trucks that are lined up still can't get through. All the aid still not getting through. Subject to a full Israeli inspection mechanism, which means nobody's getting through. On Monday, an Israeli official clarified that the reopening will not include allowing foreign journalists to access Gaza. So no foreign journalists, no trucks, and no aid. The entry of journalists is not an obligation of the state. Israel has rarely allowed journalists to access Gaza during the 2-year-long onslaught. A limited number of reporters have been allowed to enter the Strip on highly controlled tours. And anybody, honestly, that they let in at this point, I would be skeptical of why they let them in, and I'd be fearful for that person's life while they were there. In addition to barring the foreign media from accessing Gaza, Israel has, of course, murdered hundreds of Palestinian journalists. Palestinian journalists have been our eyes and ears covering the atrocities of the war on Gaza and bringing a human face to describe the impact. They've worked heroically and against all odds, says Philip Lazzarini. He added that together with humanitarian workers, they've paid a heavy ultimate price. More than 230 of them have been killed. Again, more than all of the journalists in World War II and all the other wars combined. Officials told Reuters on Friday, for propaganda purposes, that Tel Aviv is pushing for only a partial reopening of the Rafah crossing to ensure more Palestinians are exiting Gaza rather than entering the Strip. That's what they're using this for, to evacuate. In October, Israel and Hamas agreed to a peace deal that included the reopening of the Rafah crossing, but not the expulsion of Palestinians who don't have the right of return. That was not part of that deal. Fuck Israel every day. All right. And support independent media, because where else are you getting stuff like that except on independent media? These are the people that have already done so. I love you. I appreciate all of you for doing so. All right. Cash App $ Indie News Network. co-fi.com/Indie News Network. PayPal.me/Indie News Network. Patreon.com/Indie News Network. At IndieNewsNow.com, name of the show, also a website where you can read news completely ad-free. At INNNewsletter.com and over at IndieMediaToday.com over on Substack. If you're not being censored or age verified over in Australia or the UK. In which case, again, I encourage you to go to co-fi.com/Indie News Network. Okay. So now I've got a quick lightning round. I'm going to whip through these headlines very quickly, and then we'll do the GoFundMes and we'll head home. Okay. I actually at home, but I got to get to sleep soon at some point. Descent Bloom in chat wrote in really interesting articles. Got any more donations? I'll need a second page. Thanks a lot. No, I won't need a second page. I think we have enough, but maybe. Nice new graphics on her Substack. Go subscribe there. Submission as strategy: how trad wives market the Christian national agenda. Let me start over. How trad wives market the Christian nationalist agenda. All right. It's all a marketing scheme. It's not just about baking bread. It's a terrifying scam to brainwash women into voting against their own freedom. A fascinating read. And a lot of it also was talking about bot brigades, and she also did a thing about how about botnets that she published yesterday to her Substack notes. Check that out, and how a lot of this feels like it's real, but it's really just artificial to make you feel like they're getting a lot of support that they don't really have. Number two, Steve Semler from what's his publication? I'm losing my mind right now. Steve Semler, Polygraph, that's his. All right. He's all about the numbers and charts and analysis. He points out that in 2018, the Pentagon couldn't account for $1.5 trillion in assets. Now it can account for $2 trillion. And that it's never passed an audit once. First required in 1996, never once passed an audit. Trillions of dollars down a black hole by design. And now Trump wants to give them $1.5 trillion budget for next year when they've already got that amount in assets that they can't account for. Sure. Just keep throwing money down the hole. Why not? Next. As part of his, again, House boosts military budget as Pentagon extends failed audit streak to 30 years. So go support Polygraph. That's Stephen Semler with a P. StephenSemler.com. I also wanted to give a shout out and watch this little quick video by Michael Parenti, who died this week at age 92. Legendary anti-capitalist. This is a speech that he gave, and a lot of people call this the Yellow Parenti speech. I'm gonna blow this one up, and let me hit it here.
Capitalism also can never stay home. It goes abroad. So one of the laws of capitalist motion and development is this inexorable expansion. And that means expansion into an expropriation of the third world. A process that's been going on for about 400 years, perpetrated by the Portuguese, the Spaniards, the Dutch, the Belgians, the French, the English, and most recently, most successfully, most impressively, by the Americans. That is by the ruling classes of these countries, not by the ordinary people. But that expropriation of the third world has been going on for 400 years, brings us to another revelation, namely that the third world is not poor. You don't go to poor countries to make money. There are very few poor countries in this world. Most countries are rich. The Philippines are rich. Brazil is rich. Mexico is rich. Chile is rich. Only the people are poor. But there's billions to be made there, to be carved out and to be taken. There's been billions for 400 years. The capitalist European and North American powers have carved out and taken the timber, the flax, the hemp, the cocoa, the rum, the tin, the copper, the iron, the rubber, the bauxite, the slaves, and the cheap labor. They have taken out of these countries. These countries are not underdeveloped, they're overexploited.
Legend. So he died at home peacefully, surrounded by family, in comparison to the guy that he often dogged, Noam Chomsky, who has been exposed as an Epstein kid, whatever you want to call it. Okay, so not only, so again, RIP to Michael Parenti, as Ghost Art points out. I also wanted to point out Alan Macleod, another Indie Media Award honoree. RIP to Dr. Michael Parenti, who died today. Alan interviewed him for his book on the media war in Venezuela. He was very friendly and was much more interested in asking me about my work, research, and the political situation in Scotland. His death marks the passing of one of the West's most important public intellectuals. Anyway, here's what he said about the role of the media in engineering public support for regime change abroad, something all the more significant given the current U.S. attack on Venezuela. Quote, I think the mainstream media does an excellent job for the people that they represent, which is corporate America. The mainstream media are not close to corporate America. They're not supportive of corporate America. They are corporate America. The media are owned by the super rich and are a component part of power and wealth, so their job is to paint a threatening and pejorative picture of any leader, movement, or government that tries to chart an independent course, that tries to use the land, the labor, the markets, and human resources of a country for its own development. Any country that does that, its leader is denigrated, sullied, and demonized. So I think that is what we are seeing in Venezuela, is a perfect example of that. R.I.P. Michael Parenti. Thank you for your contributions. It was eloquent. Although written and published in the 80s, Parenti's Inventing Reality, the Politics of Mass Media, remains an invaluable source for those wishing to understand how the press and the world really function. The following are all quotes from Inventing Reality. Parenti on fake news. Quote, like any liar, the press is filled with contradictions. Seldom holding itself accountable for what it says, it can blithely produce information and opinions that conflict with previously held ones without a word of explanation for the shift. Parenti on how journalists internalize bias. And I'm going to mention, I asked Alan about internalizing bias and vetting sources. A reporter, this is Parenti, first comes up with an investigative story idea, writes it up, and submits it to an editor. And they're told that the story's not going to run. They wonder why, but next time they're cautious enough to check with the editors first. They're told by the editor that it would be better not to write that story. The third time, they think of an investigative story idea, but don't bother the editor with it because they know it's silly. Fourth time, they don't even think of the idea anymore. One might add a fifth time when the reporter bristles with indignation at the suggestion that he's on an ideological leash and not part of a free and democratic press. And on and on and on and on and on. R.I.P. Michael Parenti. I quoted Alan Macleod because I had the privilege of sitting down with Alan Macleod for a one-on-one last week. Man, I love that guy. I've read so many of his articles on this show. I encourage everyone to go to INNnewsletter.com and listen to, if you have not, or watch that hour and a half, hour, 20 minutes that I spent with him. I asked him specifically about Venezuela and about Julian Assange and about how do you vet sources. And he talked about how to triangulate information and listen to multiple sources to determine somebody's bias over time. It was a brilliant answer. We talked about Mint Press News and the Indiegogo censorship that was happening. So again, this was 80 minutes with Alan and I. Really appreciated the time that he spent. I've been putting out clips of this. I'm going to continue to. And again, go to INNnewsletter.com and you can listen to the full 80-minute conversation ad-free over there. Okay. And support independent media because, like Mint Press News, INN is also user-funded. Cash App, $ Indie News Network, ko-fi.com/Indie News Network, paypal.me/Indie News Network, patreon.com/Indie News Network, over at our website at IndieNewsNow.com, and at the Substacks at IndieMediaToday.com and INNnewsletter.com. Why do I keep hitting that button? That's not right. That's the button I wanted to hit. Yay. Thank you, Seven Sword. That was a great interview. Flew by. Again, he was so generous with his time. It did fly by. I did get to all the questions I want to ask. So if anyone has other questions for him, things that I did not get a chance to ask, then send them to me. I'd love to ask him, and I'd love to have him back to do that. Happy birthday to Go Start also. All right. So we're up to the GoFundMes. All right. Yay. We're almost there, folks. Okay. Shanda Masta has been attending and going through cancer treatments at Fred Hutch Cancer Center in Seattle. She could use a couple of bucks for sure. Her GoFundMe is set to $15,000. She's a little more than halfway there. She started out with stage 4 small cell lung cancer, but now it's spread. It's spread behind her eye. It's spread to her liver, and she's undergoing experimental treatments to try to slow the cancer and give her more time. We love her. We want to give her all that time that we can, but she still has expenses ongoing, both travel to and from Fred Hutch and Seattle, but also to maintain her apartment and all of her stuff at home as well. So please, if you're able to, help out Shanda. I will again drop the GoFundMe link there. All right. I love to my brother Oz as well. All right. Oz the Boomer. Next, we've got Natalia, and we've got, I see Cowboy Kitty / Tunneling Jew is in chat. His sister-in-law, Natalia, was taken by ICE at a routine traffic stop over registration. Car was impounded. She was arrested and put into a detention facility and has been there ever since. It's unreal. She's here 9 years legally. Currently in the process of applying for a green card. Granted asylum. We read that letter here on the show about a month ago. All right. Return Natalia. # return Natalia. That's right, Sean. It's awful what's happening. Again, she's just one close to home case of what's going on anecdotally across the country with ICE. Disappearing immigrants who weren't causing problems, who weren't committing crimes, who weren't doing anything other than trying to be upstanding members of society. And finally, we've got Aspen Martin, Justice for Aspen, who is facing 30 years plus in prison for being a passenger in a vehicle. I fucking love you too, Cowboy Kitty, man. We love you too. I hate that this is going on. I would do anything to get her out, man. Anything. It's just disgraceful. Like I said, justice for Aspen also was the passenger in an RV, had no idea that the guy driving the RV was carrying literally trafficking worthy quantities of illegal drugs. They got pulled over. They were targeted. We think they got pulled over, vehicle searched, everyone arrested. She was put in jail, in a county jail for 15 days, treated horribly. And she's looking again at decades of drug trafficking charges, either in Georgia or in federal or both. We don't even know what's going to end up yet. We needed to raise her $12,500 to get a lawyer and an investigator. That's been secured, but it's dried up ever since. There's still a long way to go and a short time to get there. So if you're able to, again, please go to the GoFundMe here for Aspen and drop a couple of bucks. We gave last month. We were one of the last people to help them get to the 12.5. And I believe that Descent in Bloom might have been the person that got her over the top. And by the way, Descent in Bloom wrote a beautiful article that laid out exactly what happened to Aspen over here. So by all means, go read this article. If you don't know what happened and you want to learn about it, it could happen to any of us. We all could be a passenger in a car of somebody we didn't know, and all of a sudden they get pulled over and they're not who they say they were, and we find this out the hard way, literally the hard way. And since I dropped the other two GoFundMes, I will also put Natalia's GoFundMe link in the chat for everyone to be able to click and support, because again, that also has not received any additional support in a couple of weeks. So if you can do that, please. Man, it really makes all the difference. And it morally boosts and helps to know that there are people out there that really care. Complete strangers or friends and family. Finally, I've mentioned Indie News Now tonight in between every segment. I'm going to show you the website. This is currently what's going on there. Gregory Bovino was removed from Minneapolis, correct, recalled and reassigned. But again, my feeling is that he will only pop up somewhere else in a larger capacity long term. The Trump administration loves him and loves what he was doing. They just don't like the fact that he very publicly got everybody upset with them for it. All right. So that's Left Voice, Anti-War, Consortium News, all Indie Media Award honorees, by the way. Electronic Intifada, Sheer Post, ProPublica, Caitlin Johnstone, Odyssey Links from the Duran. All right. Again, more ProPublica and Unicorn Riot. A lot of Indie Media Award honorees and outlets. And oh yeah, look, we had a clip from last week about the GoFundMes that went out yesterday morning. So we're trying to put that out there on a daily basis and get content out. And this is where I said you can keep the news free by going here and going to a support link there and pay any amount that you want, or you can go to the merch store. And I showed last week some of the merch that's there. There's all the heads for INN, but you can get INN logo merch. You can get Indie t-shirts with the red tie. Now there's a green tie Indie as well. Go to the view all, and down at the bottom, my latest and favorite creation is Cats or Dicks, which is a Colin Radix Carter phrase that started out on INN News. We started saying it on boats smashing into other boats, and I've now created a shirt, Cats or Dicks. So get yourself a Cats or Dicks shirt. And Reef wants to make one that says Cats or Pussies and see which one sells more. There's the logo t-shirt. There's also one for INN 8 the Ocho, that logo. Get yourself some merch. Not expensive, reasonably priced, and helps you rock, to advertise the brand, get the word out. Okay. That's it. I did it. We got through it. All right. That was a long one. Thank you for sticking sticking with me. Yes, thank you to Descent in Bloom. They'll arrest you for anything and everything, and if they can't find a reason, they'll invent one. That is the scariest part Be careful. Quotas are supposed to be illegal. That is correct. But who's holding them accountable? It's a whole other thing. So again, the rest of the week, we got INN News tomorrow night with Reef and Colin. Thursday night, we're scheduled to have American Tradition with Jesse. But I have not heard from Jesse in a while. So if you know Jesse, reach out to him and tell him to call me or message me, because I would like to do some planning for the show in advance. I've been trying to reach him. I don't know what's up. Maybe his DMs are broken. Text message. I don't know. So find Jesse if you can and tell him to call Indy. And then Friday, we got the Independent Review in the morning, and then Angel in the afternoon or at 7 Eastern. Saturday will be Pro Wrestling Talk. Sunday will be boats smashing into other boats. Next week, again, there will be no Indie News Now live as a live show. We'll likely do some kind of a clip show. I got to go on a business trip. So, and then we'll be back the week after that with another all-new set of articles. And after 2 weeks, I'm sure there will be a ton of stuff for me to talk about. And maybe I'll even go 3 hours next time. But again, thank you for sticking with me and for being patient and listening and raging with me and letting me get all this out, because I need to. And I love you all. Support independent media, because we need it more than ever, fam. I'll see you soon. No! We just fucking lost the stream!
I think I liked it better being blind, when I couldn't read between the lines, and when I couldn't see the cracks in the structure that lay bare before me the whole time. I think I liked it better back when I suspended disbelief and swallowed pride. I thought I knew the difference in the red from the blue, but they both bleed us so dry. They both bleed us so dry.
My favorite songs don't hit the same way. I get to the end of a 4-minute track and I'm only looking back thinking, what did they actually say? So
I guess this isn't such an awful place. Is that what you want